My name is Nicole Evans, and this is not an easy story for me to tell. For a long time, I kept this hidden behind polite smiles and short answers whenever someone asked how married life was treating me. I used to believe love could survive anything. That commitment alone was strong enough to hold two people together forever. I was wrong. Before our baby arrived, my husband and I laughed easily, talked for hours, and dreamed about the future like it was something we were building together. But something shifted the moment our child was born, and I didn't notice it right away. If you're listening to this and stories like this matter to you, please take a moment to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you don't miss the newest stories, because sometimes hearing someone else's truth helps us face our own. Back then, I thought exhaustion was the problem. That time would fix everything. I didn't know that love can quietly change shape without warning. Pregnancy was hard, but I felt supported. He held my hand during appointments, kissed my forehead when I cried for no reason, and told me I was beautiful even when I didn't feel like myself. I believed we were becoming stronger, preparing to become parents together. Everyone warned me that having a baby changes everything, but no one explains how deeply it can change the people involved. After the birth, he became distant in ways I couldn't explain. He was there physically, but emotionally, he felt like someone standing behind a glass wall. I tried to convince myself that it was normal, that new fathers struggle too, that I just needed to be patient. But patience slowly turned into loneliness, and loneliness has a way of settling into your chest and refusing to leave. The nights were the hardest. I would sit in the dim light of the nursery, rocking our baby while the rest of the house slept. Sometimes he was snoring in the bedroom. Sometimes he was scrolling on his phone with his back turned toward me. I remember thinking how strange it was to feel so alone while someone I loved was only a few feet away. I didn't want perfection. I just wanted partnership. I wanted him to ask how I was really doing, not just how the baby was. But every conversation felt rushed, shallow, unfinished. I began to feel like I existed only in relation to motherhood, not as a woman, not as a wife, not as Nicole. People around me kept saying, "You're so lucky," and I nodded because that's what you're supposed to do. I was grateful for my child, deeply grateful, but gratitude doesn't erase emotional pain. My husband stopped looking at me the way he used to. Our conversations turned into logistics, feeding schedules, bills, errands. Romance faded quietly, without an argument or a clear ending. I felt guilty for missing the version of us that existed before. Society doesn't prepare women for this kind of grief, the grief of losing a relationship while still being inside it. I tried to talk to him. I chose my words carefully, afraid of sounding needy or ungrateful. I told him I felt disconnected, invisible. He listened, nodded, and said he was tired. That answer became a wall between us. Every time I tried again, the response was the same. Tired, stressed, busy. Eventually, I stopped asking. When someone shows you repeatedly that your feelings are inconvenient, you learn to silence them. I began carrying everything inside, convincing myself that strong women don't complain. Motherhood changed my body, my priorities, my sense of self. I was navigating all of that while grieving a marriage that no longer felt mutual. I watched other couples on social media, smiling with their babies, and wondered what I was doing wrong. Was I expecting too much? Was I failing as a wife? These questions haunted me during quiet moments. The truth is, no one talks enough about how men and women sometimes grow in opposite directions after becoming parents, and how painful that realization can be. There were moments when I almost didn't recognize myself. I became quieter, more cautious. I stopped sharing my thoughts because I didn't want to start another conversation that would go nowhere. I missed feeling desired, not just needed. I missed laughter. I missed being touched without it feeling like an obligation. Slowly, resentment crept in, and that scared me more than the sadness. I didn't want to become bitter, but I didn't know how to save something that only I seemed to be fighting for. One day, I looked at my reflection and realized how exhausted I looked. Not physically, but emotionally. I loved my child fiercely, but I felt empty in other parts of my life. I began to understand that staying silent was costing me pieces of myself. That realization didn't give me answers, but it gave me honesty. I stopped pretending everything was fine, even if I didn't say it out loud. Sometimes awareness is the first step toward change, even when you're terrified of what that change might mean. I don't know how this story ends yet. We are still married. We still live in the same house. Some days are better than others. I've learned that love after a baby requires intention, not just hope. It requires effort from both sides. And when that effort is one-sided, it hurts in ways that are hard to explain. I'm sharing this because I know I'm not alone, even when it feels that way. If you're listening and you feel seen, please know that your feelings are valid. Wanting emotional connection does not make you weak. Missing your old relationship does not mean you love your child any less. We can hold gratitude and grief at the same time. I'm learning that slowly, one honest thought at a time. I started paying closer attention to the silence between us, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy silence that feels loaded with things unsaid. I noticed how he avoided eye contact when conversations became personal, how he changed the subject when I mentioned us. It wasn't anger or cruelty, it was absence. And absence can hurt just as deeply. I realized that I was mourning someone who was still alive, someone who still shared my last name and my home, yet felt unreachable. That kind of loss doesn't come with sympathy cards or clear endings. It just sits with you, quietly reshaping how you see love. There were moments when I blamed myself entirely. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe motherhood had made me too emotional, too sensitive. I replayed conversations in my head, wondering if I could have said things differently, softer, better. Self-blame became a habit, one that drained what little energy I had left. But deep down, I knew relationships are not supposed to feel like constant self-erasure. Love should expand you, not shrink you into silence. Eventually, I suggested counseling, not as a threat, not as an ultimatum, but as a lifeline. He hesitated. That hesitation told me more than his words ever could. It showed me how differently we viewed the problem. For me, it was urgent, painful, personal. For him, it was something to avoid. Still, a small part of me hoped that naming the distance between us might make it less powerful. Sometimes hope survives even when logic tells you to let go. Motherhood taught me strength, but this situation taught me boundaries. I began asking myself hard questions. How long can someone wait to be chosen? How long can love survive without emotional safety? I didn't have answers, but I finally allowed myself to ask. That alone felt rebellious. I started prioritizing small moments of self-care, not because they fixed everything, but because they reminded me that I still existed beyond my roles. I learned that becoming a parent doesn't automatically make someone a partner in the emotional sense. Some people retreat inward when responsibility grows. Others rise to meet it. Accepting that difference was painful, but necessary. I stopped expecting him to suddenly become the man he was before. That version of him belonged to a different chapter. Holding on to that memory was preventing me from seeing the reality in front of me. There were days I imagined leaving, not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. And then there were days I imagined staying forever, slowly disappearing. Both possibilities scared me. I realized that no choice is painless, but some pain leads to growth while other pain leads to numbness. I began to understand that staying is not always the same as enduring, and leaving is not always the same as failing. What hurt the most was realizing that love alone cannot carry a relationship through every season. Commitment needs presence. Marriage needs curiosity. Parenthood needs teamwork. Without those things, love becomes a memory instead of a living connection. Accepting this didn't make me cold, it made me honest. And honesty, even when it breaks your heart, is a form of self-respect. I don't share this story to paint anyone as a villain. My husband is not a bad person. He is just a person who changed in ways I didn't anticipate. And I changed too. Sometimes two people grow in different directions, even when they start from the same place. That truth is uncomfortable, but it's also real. If you're listening and living a similar story, please know this. You are not weak for wanting more connection. You are not selfish for needing to feel seen. And you are not broken because motherhood didn't magically fix everything. Your feelings deserve space, not shame. Silence protects no one in the long run. This chapter of my life is still being written. I don't know what the final outcome will be. But I do know that telling my truth is part of reclaiming myself. I am Nicole Evans. I am a mother, a wife, and a woman learning to choose honesty over comfort. And no matter how this story ends, I refuse to disappear inside it.